Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
Hello, listeners. Welcome to Business Innovators Radio. This is your host, Constant Taylor. Today, we have a very special guest on the show, and they're going to share some very exciting information with us. So, if you're looking to increase your personal and professional effectiveness, then you've come to the right place. Our special guest today is Richard Coffey. Richard has been speaking professionally for over 5 years, and the content that he primarily speaks on is personal and professional development, strategic selling, and team building. He has spoken primarily nationally and is based out of Minneapolis. He has 2 books coming out. The first is called The Season of Life, Change, Attitude, and Perseverance. The second one is called 3 for 3, Raising Successful Athletes. Richard, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Hey, and thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to join us. I'd like to kick off the show by asking you if you could tell the listeners a little bit about your speaking business and how you help your clients become more successful and effective.
Well, I started speaking because I thought there was a need to pass along some information that could help everybody. And, so many of us, when we graduate from high school, we think about what we're going to do with our lives. And a lot of us choose to go to college or get some type of further education. And once that process is over, whether it's a 2-year degree or a 4-year degree, or you found another way to increase your education, once that process is over, then we start looking for employment or job or career. And that's where the transformation happens that stops us. Once we find that job, once we get into that career, a lot of times we stop trying to increase our personal knowledge and we stop looking for ways to get better every day. So my goal is to help everyone be better tomorrow than they are today, with helping them understand the importance of their professional and personal development.
Okay, excellent. Now, you actually have, you're not just, talking the talk, but you actually have a professional sports background in which you're able to pull from. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. So originally, when I came out of high school, I went in the military for 3 years, and I joined the first to fight, last to fall 82nd Airborne Unit out of Fort Bragg, North Carolina. And after jumping out of airplanes for 3 years and protecting and serving our country, I went to the University of Minnesota, where I played basketball for the University of Minnesota. And once I graduated from college, I actually was blessed to play a couple years with the Minnesota Timberwolves and actually spent about 8 years overseas after my NBA career was over, continuing to play basketball. Learned a lot. And the one thing I really love about athletes that a lot of people miss, and I talk about this in one of my books. When we see an athlete on television or when we see an athlete at the game, that's only about 10% of the time that he's really working. Mm. Athletes spend 90% of their time preparing and getting ready for the 10% of the time that we see them. And we're totally opposite. We go to work every day and we spend most of our time working on whatever our job is. Mm-hmm. But how much time do we really spend at trying to prepare and get better at what our job is? Mm-hmm. And that's where your professional and your personal development comes in. You have to find a way to continue to sharpen your skills and increase your knowledge in whatever industry you're in.
It makes a lot of sense, and it's very, very timely. A lot of people talk about the 1%, but if you look at professional athletes, NFL, NBA, those are truly the best of the best, and there's only a small percentage, 1% or possibly less, that actually make it to the NBA. So the lessons that you're conveying in terms of preparation. Said Michael Jordan took over 10,000, practice free throws, Kobe Bryant's work attitude, and that's really applicable in the business world. If you want to be on top of your game, you really have to put in that preparation. But how do you do that? People are working 50, 60 hours a week. Where does that practice time come in?
Well, there's always time. In most industry, at most employers, each employer, they would have their own library of knowledge. For example, when I worked back in corporate America, I worked for a company called Liberty Enterprises. Liberty had what they call Liberty University. And at Liberty University was all types of sales materials, how to be a better salesperson, product knowledge where I could go and at my own pace, I can learn more about our products that we were selling to our customers and learn more about who Liberty is as a company and more about my competitors. So there's always courses that you can take either from the company that you work for or online courses that you can take that are self-paced. You don't have to go to a class. You can start it and you can do it at your own pace, which in these days with our society now, with everybody being super busy, it's almost the only way to try to continue to increase your skills and your knowledge set. And why that's so important, just speaking about the NBA, as you spoke about a couple minutes ago, those guys, less than 1% make it to the NBA.
Mm-hmm.
Even less than that actually stay in the NBA. So making it is just one thing. Now, once you get there, once you find that dream job that you really want, that you worked so hard to get,
mm-hmm.
once you find that dream job, how are you going to stay at that dream job? And how are you going to continue to bring an effective attitude and learning that 10 years from when you start that dream job, that job is still your dream job. Mm-hmm. You have to find a way to continue to increase your personal and your professional development, and there's always ways to do that.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. It makes a lot of sense. Now, what are some of the popular misconceptions about what you bring to the table, and how do you dispel those?
Well, first of all, most people, so what I try to get people to do is to help them realize and to accept that they can be doing more than they're doing right now. So for most people, they don't really like to think about the shortcomings that they have. They want to think about everything that I'm doing good.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things I talk about in my speech is self-evaluation. Self-evaluation is really difficult. See, it's easy to evaluate surroundings around us and other people that's in our environment. It's easy to evaluate other people. But when you truly sit down and self-evaluate, it's a very difficult thing, because if I'm going to truly self-evaluate, I may have to admit that I might be the problem.
Mm-hmm.
I may have to admit that it's my attitude that's causing the situation to be what it is. I may have to admit that I haven't truly given the 110% that I need to give to make my team or my business successful. So that's a very difficult thing for us to do. But if you do that, if you truly go through a thorough self-evaluation, I promise you that it will make you better on the other side.
Mm.
So that's what I talk to people about a lot. And that's what I try to get people to buy into. It's okay. Drop your guards. It's not a personal attack. We're just trying to help you get better here.
Now, what is when you're looking at, it's one thing to say, okay, I need to self-evaluate. And do you take them through the process of, step one, look at this, step two, look at that? Or is it just a general, you need to do a self-evaluation?
No, so what I try to do is I try to help them create a game plan.
Mm-hmm.
And I talk to them in depth about self-evaluating and how to go about it. And sometimes I do breakout sessions where I'll do an hour and a half to 2 hour breakout session only about self-evaluation, so they can get more in depth into how to self-evaluate, or I help them understand how to find a good self-evaluating program, or I talk to them about the self-evaluating program that I've come up with. And then another part of that game plan is once you self-evaluate, you may find yourself in a situation that you have to set some new standards or set some new rituals. So setting new standards and rituals will help you stay on pace to whatever that new goal or that new plan is. And along with that, now if you start self-evaluate, if you're going to truly self-evaluate, and if you're going to truly start setting new standards and coming up with new rituals to help you stay on track, you're going to have to tap into your personal power. Mm-hmm. And personal power is something that we all have inside of us, but not many of us use it. See, our personal power is the power that we take to every meeting with us. Our personal power is the power that we take to every conversation with us. Those of us that have learned to tap into and use our personal power, we are the ones that can influence situations and influence conversations. Those of us who haven't tapped into our personal power, we are the people that get influenced by those that have. So tapping into your personal power gives you the strength that you're going to need to do a great self-evaluation and start changing your standards. You know, your standards. See, the standards that I had in high school, and I had pretty high standards in high school for myself, but the standards that I had in high school, when I went to the military out of high school, those standards that I had in high school, they weren't good enough for the military. I had to set some new standards for my life when I got to the military because it was really hard. And then when I left the military and went to college, I had to set a whole new group of standards because in the military, I was on survival mode, learning how to survive in a war or how to defend our country. When I got to college, that environment changed. I went from a soldier survival mode to a competitive mode. Mm-hmm. Now I'm competitive in the classroom with my other students. I'm competitive on the basketball court with my teammates. So my standards had to change.
Right.
My approach has to change. And then when I left college and finished my professional basketball career and start working in corporate America, man, I had to set a whole new group of standards. Mm-hmm. So I think people believe that once you set standards that you can leave those standards in place and they'll last forever. And that's not the case. You know, you may have to revisit your standards from time to time to ensure that they're still adequate for what you're trying to accomplish.
That's pretty poignant, and it looking at your one of your books that's coming out, The Season of Life: Change, Attitude, and Perseverance. When you self-evaluate, that's going to take care of the change part, because when you look at the things that are not good, that's going to handle that. Now, what about the attitude and the perseverance piece?
So the attitude, our attitude is so key to our success. So when I went in the military, basic training, I hated being there, and I had a bad attitude about everything. I mean, I would go to bed at night thinking I made a mistake coming here, and I hate being here. And I would the last thing I would say to myself before I fell asleep is, tomorrow's going to be a terrible day. And I would be right. I would wake up the next day and it was the same stuff. Right. It was terrible. Running 6 miles in the rain, going on 15-mile road marches, it was a terrible thing. But then when I realized that they're not going to send me home, and when I realized that the only thing that's holding me back is my attitude, once I changed my attitude in that situation, now the situation didn't change, the people around me didn't change, but once I changed my approach, my experience changed. It was all based on my attitude and not having the right attitude for the situation. So there's always going to be situations in our life that comes up where we're going to have to check our attitude at the door, or we're going to have to humble ourselves, or we're going to have to make sure that we stay in professional. And that's all attitude driven. And perseverance, every single one of us, from time to time, whether it's professionally or whether it's personally, we're going to run into a situation that we're going to have to persevere through. It happens to us all. There's always situations out there that's going to call for us persevering and persevering through. And the one thing that stops us all in our tracks, The one thing that stops us from self-evaluating, the one thing that stops us from looking at our attitude, the one thing that stops us from trying to create new standards for our life, the one thing that stops us from stepping outside of our comfort zone and trying to be better is fear. Fear can be a strong and powerful enemy in our lives if we let it. But the truth about fear is it has no power. Fear only has the power that we give it. And I grew up, and my mother used to always say to me, son, you got to have confidence. And whatever you do, make sure you're confident. Well, you know what? My mom was wrong. See, you don't need confidence. Fear wants you to believe that you need confidence to start something new or to try something. You don't need to be confident in the beginning. You know what you need? You need to be courageous. You need courage. See, it's not my confidence that gets me through the tough times. It's my courage that keeps me fighting. And then what happens is when you're involved with something for enough time, and when you have put enough research in it, when you have spent enough time increasing your knowledge, then you become confident in that thing. But fear wants us to believe you can't start something unless you're confident. Now, how many times in your life have you started something new that you may not have had all the confidence in the world, but you thought you could make it work? See, whenever we start new jobs, we're not confident because we don't know what that new job totally requires. We're learning new things. It's going to require us to step outside of our comfort zone. I like to tell people, see, we all have created a safe zone for ourselves. In our safe zone, our family lives inside that safe zone with us. Our job that we know so well, our friends, all of our hobbies live inside that safe zone. We choose who we let into our safe zone, and we choose who we kick out of our safe zone. But the one thing we can't do in that safe zone is we can't continue to expand. We got to step outside of our safe zone to do that. We got to step outside of our comfort zone to continue to try to be better tomorrow than we are today.
Man, it's such powerful words of wisdom that you're imparting, and it's amazing how quickly the time flies when we're engaged in such a powerful conversation such as this. Now, let me ask you. I want you to, if you could, think about one theme or concept that you would like to leave the listeners with. So, if they don't get anything else out of this discussion, this is what I want to leave them with. Could you do that?
This is what I want to leave them with. If you are in a situation, or if you are an individual, and you're trying to increase who you are, professionally and personally, if you want to be better tomorrow than you are today, if you have tried things that has not worked out and you lack confidence, or you letting fear dominate who you are, if you're looking for a way, and if you're looking for a game plan to help you stay on and get on the right path, I can help you with that.
Excellent. Now, if the listeners would like to contact your organization, find out more about what you do, or possibly engage with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
My website is richardcoffey.net. That's Richard, COFFEY.net. And my office telephone number is 952-345-0692. Excellent.
Richard, thank you so much for coming on the show. That was outstanding information that you shared with the listeners, and we really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.